Yeah.
And the tickets house.
I'm sore.
Yeah, I bought two. Did you on that? I bought two from Eric.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
So it's not kicked in yet, really, but
It is August 19th, 2024 at 6 p.m., and it's time to call the city council meeting to order. Ms. Jones, roll call, please.
Here.
Mr. Shuck,
Here.
Ms. McGinnis,
here.
Ms. Nally,
Here.
Ms. Price,
Here.
Mr. Fry,
Here.
and Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, prayer and pledge, please.
All right, invite you to join me. Our Father, we come before you this evening and thank you for your goodness and your grace. And we pray tonight you'd be with this meeting. I pray you'd be with every aspect of the agenda as we see an officer promoted and rewarded for their hard work. And I pray you bless them, their family. Pray you'd be with the other items on the agenda, things of matters of infrastructure. I pray you give our council wisdom on decisions to make, and as they consider just the needs of our future as well as the impact on our residents, just give them just good discernment as they make decisions on that. Thank you for our city. Thank you for our first responders. Continue to bless them, watch over them in all they do to serve and protect. Be with our state, nation, and our armed forces as they keep us free. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight. We'll start out with the promotion of Ben Kraut, and I would just like to make the comment, I also love to see when we have officers stepping up to the plate, getting promoted, working hard. We have lost, I don't say we lost, we've had some good officers retire over the last few years and went on, they deserve to retire, and it's good to see the younger ones fill in the shoes. So thank you for that. And Chief Cochran, do you want to go ahead?
City of Franklin Police Department congratulates Benjamin Kraut on his promotion to rank of sergeant this coming August 13th, 2024. What I will say about this is Ben actually volunteered and served for a year last year while we're trying to get this thing driven in a few months this year. He is our newest K-9 officer also, so he's got a full plate. So congratulations to you, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Here.
Okay, is there any other announcements or public comment that doesn't pertain to the agenda? Where are you guys going? You might be able to help us out. Thank you for your service. Okay, I'll ask one more time. Any announcements, public comment that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda from the meeting minutes from August 5th City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read old business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so. We'll go into item number one on old business, approval of budgetary ordinance 24-19 to appropriate the Community Crossings Grant for 2024 Part 1 state funds in the amount of $888,753.47. We introduced this at August the 5th, and what we're trying to approve tonight is just the approval to spend the money, put it in, I think it's already in account 1003, and we're just needing permission to pay the bills. And we can open this up for public hearing at this time.
And Madam Clerk Treasurer, I recall correctly, we've already received the funds, correct?
We have.
But this is just the appropriation part. Thank you.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. So I guess any questions? If not, we're ready for action.
Move to approve budgetary ordinance 24-19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to read new business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 1, presentation of DPW construction project purpose and need, Westler rate study, and public hearing of wastewater rate ordinance. Westler Engineering, we got Brett Siebenthal, Peters, from Jeff Peters from our municipal consultant, and Stephen Watson, our attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Gary was unable to be here tonight. I also have Bridget Ingram with me, who will be presenting on the wastewater plant project. And with that, would it be okay to skip a couple slides and go directly to the West Side Interceptor? Yep, next one. There we go. Okay. So keep going, and there's a lot of slides. We're going to get through these pretty quickly, though. Let's move on to the next one. It's the outline. Be presenting some background on the comprehensive plan, the existing US 31 interceptor in Youngs Creek Lift Station, and then finally the proposed West Side Regional Interceptor. 2013 comprehensive plan. Next. That exhibit shows the long-term land development in the shaded areas. These areas would require sanitary service. Go on to the next one. We basically looked at the sanitary service areas as two, one on the east side surrounded by the ellipse in purple, and then on the left side, with the west side, which is encapsulated by the red line there. So we got the east side and the west side service areas. Next. The East Side Regional Interceptor was constructed and completed in October of 2022. Next. Briefly, that project consisted of the installation of a new sanitary interceptor from the existing Jim Black lift station. Then it ran south to a new lift station, which included a new force main that discharges into an existing 30-inch sanitary sewer. Again, that project has already been constructed. Next. Okay, existing conditions, the US 31 interceptor. Currently, the west side is serviced by this interceptor. It runs primarily parallel with US 31, consists of the interceptor itself, the gravity interceptor, and then the Youngs Creek Lift Station. Next slide, please. The service area for the US 31 interceptor is delineated by that blue dashed line. As you can see, it doesn't cover the long-term land development areas west of there. So in terms of the US 31 interceptor and the Youngs Creek Lift Station, which that interceptor discharges into, the Youngs Creek Lift Station is the largest lift station in the city. It currently serves the entire area west of US 31, which is about a third of the city. Both the interceptor and the lift station are at capacity during heavier rainfall events, and a new interceptor and lift station are needed for the future growth to the northwest, the west, and the southwest, our west service area. Next slide. Really, the point of this slide is to show Youngs Creek and basically note that design of this interceptor and construction is complicated by Youngs Creek. So we've got some creek crossings. We're also running along a creek. And then we also have Highway 44 and 144 that need to be crossed. Next. Okay, so this is the proposed interceptor. It starts there along Brannigan Road to the north of the high school, runs through the high school campus, and then south where it's a gravity interceptor that ties into a new lift station and force main that would then pump to the east all the way over to the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide. Breaking it down in a little more detail, phase one, we broke this project into two phases. Phase one has been constructed. It was completed December of 23, and that project consisted of installing a new interceptor along Brannigan Road, and then the interceptor goes down south through the high school campus and ties into an upgraded Commerce Drive lift station. This lift station pumps to the east over to the US 31 interceptor, which, as we mentioned before, is having some wet weather capacity issues. So this is a temporary, a short-term fix, this phase one of the project. And this portion of the project provides sanitary service to the northwest, to the high school and the northwest area. Phase two, go back one, if I may. Phase two would reroute from that lift station, the Commerce Drive lift station. It would put in a new force main that goes to the west and then to the south, and that would discharge into a gravity sewer interceptor that travels a distance all the way down to a new lift station, and from that new lift station, it would pump to the east over to the treatment plant. Phase two of the project, again, phase one's been constructed. Phase two of the project would consist of approximately 18,500 feet of 18-inch to 24-inch gravity sanitary sewer main, about 16,000 lineal feet of force main. The current opinion of project cost is $13 million, and the anticipated project schedule design is 95% complete. Of the 20 or so easements that we need to get, we're still trying to work through 10 of them, and we're holding off on finishing the design until the final easement acquisition takes place, because there has been a shifting of the sewer alignment here and there, depending on conversations with the property owners. Permitting, we have a few that we'll need to renew. Some of these permits were obtained a couple, 2 to 3 years ago. As I mentioned, easement acquisition is ongoing, but we're hopeful that it's going to wrap up sooner rather than later. The bid and bonding, we anticipate 4 months, and then construction, we're estimating 12 months for the construction. With that, I will turn it over to Bridget, and then we will take questions at the end.
Thanks, Brent. If you can go all the way back up to the top, actually, one more down. We'll do this section first. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the treatment plant expansion project and what we need to do and what all is included in that. So starting, the project, or the original treatment plant was built in around 1996. So many components of the plant are almost 30 years old, and the useful life of most of the equipment is about 20 years. So there's just a need to replace a lot of the existing equipment, but there's also a need to expand the plant based off of the flows that you guys have been seeing over the last few years. So you can see that in 2021 is the highest yearly flow to date, which was 4.71 million gallons per day. That was over 90% of your plant capacity. Anytime you have a yearly average that's over your 90%, IDEM takes notice, and they say you need to start coming up with a plan on what to do. You can see that the flows in 2022 and 2023 dropped down a little bit from that. That is partially because your system is impacted by wet weather flows, so the more it rains, the higher flows you're gonna see. So 2024, if it rains a lot, those numbers could go back up. Couple goals we have for the treatment plant expansion project. The first and foremost, as I mentioned, with the aging equipment, is just to replace that old equipment that is currently failing at the plant and causing issues for the plant staff. We just want to make sure things are more reliable moving forward. The next thing we want to do is to provide a more energy efficient process and equipment. With technology changes we've had over the last 30 years, we can make something bigger but still use less energy than the existing products, which will hopefully help you save on energy costs day to day. And then finally, we want to make sure that we can increase the design flow capacity at the plant, so when all this expansion that Brent alluded to around town occurs, that there's room to take in that flow and opportunity for development within the community. If you wouldn't mind going up to the map exhibit on the slide above it, maybe we can try to zoom out just a tad here. I won't bore you with the specific details, but I did want to run through kind of the general plan for the treatment plant project. We just completed the new screening building, which just finished in March 2024. So that's the one section of the plant that is good to go. We added that first to help increase the overall capacity at the head of the plant. And then we're going to be putting in new pumps, new secondary treatment system. So you can see those big oxidation ditches. The ovals on there, we'll be adding that, as well as grit, a new blower building, clarifiers, UV, and then expanding the entire solids handling process and making some modifications to that to make it easier to operate for the plant staff. The big takeaway from all of this is there's very few parts of the plant that we're not expanding. Most of the components we're adding to, if you already have 2 grit, we're adding a third. 2 oxidation ditches, we're adding a third. And so it's keeping most of the existing systems you have and just making it a little bit larger so we can increase the design flow from 5.13 to 7.5 million gallons per day. So that'll increase your capacity to about 50% of what it is right now. You can go ahead and go scroll back down to the next slide for me. So the cost of this project is estimated at this time to be $33.2 million. In terms of the schedule, we're currently in design, so we're kind of in between 30 to 60% design, and we anticipate finishing that up later this year, beginning of 2025. Permitting for this project will take 4 months, and then about 4 months to bid and do the financial component of this project once we know what the final cost is going to be, and then 21 months for construction. Overall, we anticipate finishing the plant expansion project sometime around fall of 2027. Is there any questions anyone has regarding the treatment plant or the interceptor project that Brent or I could answer for you?
I don't have a question, but I got a comment that I want to make because I was asked this today. The rates, the flows have went down, and I just wanted to point out the reason those flows have went down is not because of all the weathers up and down. We spent $1 million at Camelot lining old sewer lines. Mr. Swineheimer's in the crowd. He was on the Board of Works when we did that. We lined all of Camelot. We spent $1 million out on US 31 lining that. And our guys, we've also been working on manholes, sealing manholes, and that bought us some time. That gave us more capacity, and that is why we gained a little bit.
Thank you.
I have just a question, perhaps as a citizen. So if all of these improvements are done, are we thinking that the next 25 years, or 30 years, a council will have to look at it at that point in time? How long would you project this out to be
So the
improved?
collection system, 50, 75 years plus, basically
Oh.
it's sized to handle this development, the areas that we're talking about. On the plant side, though, Bridget, can you?
Yeah, I would say probably more than that 20, 25 years, guys. Even at the plant project, you might not need to increase the flow too much more, although we are planning for that. So we're leaving room for future tanks and kind of, roughing in where those would go when we do this plant expansion project. The thing with the plant is because of all the equipment, it's going to have a useful life again of about 20
25,
years. So
20.
yeah, 20, 25 years. So even if it's not an expansion project, you might need to do an improvements or equipment replacement
Which you'll
project.
do normal maintenance anyway, but
I should qualify, there are a couple lift stations on these projects, so that
Yeah.
would be the same timeline for the lift stations.
thank you.
Good question. Anything else?
We do it at the end, public hearing at the end, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I think, hearing from Jeff.
Good evening. Before you, we have a rate study, and it's basically just the mathematical proof of how you adjust rates, or how we are proposing you to adjust rates in order to fund the new projects that you've heard about. This is the same format that you did as a fiscal body about 4.5 years ago. At that point in time, you adjusted rates for the then current operating circumstances and built in enough money to fund the debt service for the East Side Interceptor that you've already completed. So again, same format is now we're going to add another layer of debt service to fund these $46 million of projects that the engineers are now telling you you need to do in order to continue to efficiently provide the service and at the capacity that you will need both currently and hopefully for growth as it comes forward. So the first slide up is a model that we build for your current charges, all the different categories that you have of users. And we build a live mathematical model to show this is what produces currently about $4.86 million a year in funds for your current operations. Next page is the second part of that calculation. Following page, please. So for operation and maintenance, first off, we want to break down what it is going to be required for operation and maintenance. And we have a schedule in the back that we'll get to here shortly that looks at this adjusted amount for 2023. So we've looked at the actual amounts of 2023. We've made any adjustments that had to be made per the 25 budget, which needed to be made for, I believe, some salaries, some supply things, pension and benefits. All of those have been worked into this because, again, you want a working model that is going to get you enough revenue to not only service the debt, but service the current operations in the circumstances that you're at. And that for 2023 is currently adjusted, is currently estimated at about $4.5 million. Next page in, the revenue requirements. You have the $4.5 million in operation and maintenance that you need to fund. You also have to fund a debt service coverage. And as we've talked about before, whenever we issue revenue bonds, which the sewer revenues will be the actual revenues for this revenue bond, you have to have coverage above and beyond just the principal and interest as it becomes due. And that is to help protect bondholders. That's to make sure that you have enough money that you can make those principal and interest payments as they come due, not be late on any of them, not be cash strapped. The typical standard is 125%. We have worked that in at 125%, and your debt service coverage is about $1,023,000 and some change. There's kind of two ways you can calculate this. One is you can just add that $1,023,000 on top. The other alternative that you have, and what we've done here to keep your rates as low as possible, is you have a $1 million placeholder in your sewage works budget every year for capital projects. As the mayor mentioned, those amounts have been used in the past to do relinings, to do replacements and repairs, things like that. We have segregated that $1 million and used it towards your debt service coverage. So at any point in time in a future year when you don't use that $1 million, you have it there for debt service coverage. Obviously, the first commitment you have as a fiscal body and as a utility is to make that debt service payment. So that debt service payment needs to be made. Then if you have this $1 million left over, you can go spend it on projects. The next year we do the same thing. The debt service for the 2020 bonds is about $341,750. Estimated for the 2025 bonds, and based on our last month's discussion, we have scaled back the amortization and the repayment from 25 years to 20 years in order to save you as a utility and the ratepayers about $8 million across that period. That estimated debt service on these new $46 million worth of projects would be approximately $3,752,000. So total revenue requirements we need to get to are approximately $9.6 million. If we look at the next page, this is where we adjusted that live revenue model in order to generate $9.6 million in revenue. We have applied the same increase to all components. In rate making, sometimes you look at commercial property versus residential versus industrial, and you will scale those based on the strains that they put on the system. For this rate study, we assume that the model that you had in place sufficiently already addressed that. So there have been no changes in the proportionate share that each of these different ratepayer categories pay. We applied the same percentage increase to both the user charge per gallon, the residential metered basis, and the unmetered residential basis. So everybody is sharing the same proportionate share that they previously had under these rates and the existing rates. So no one has gone up disproportionate to the others. Everybody's just going to pay a little bit more in order to pay that debt service. Now, if you would go down 2 more pages. Okay, so comparison of looking at the revenues and expenditures, the base year versus the new rates. At the bottom, surplus and deficit. Again, this is just a mathematical proof to show that we have adjusted rates and anticipate revenue enough to cover all of these expenditures in the bottom section, and we just have a small surplus of about $17,000 a year. And again, based on $9 million of revenue, you know, that's not a rounding amount, so. Next page. Chart of comparable utilities and nearby utilities. The top section shows where you're at today. So for Franklin, if it is, and the example used was a residential payer at 4,000 gallons. For Franklin, that cost is $27.29. You've got Bargersville at $54.81, Greenwood at $62.27, Greenfield at $57.87, Martinsville at $52.41, Columbus at $40.37, Mooresville at $46.02. So as you can see in that comparison, you're well below at this point. The new rates that are proposed here are shown in the bottom section. If you approve these, that anticipated 4,000 gallon residential client or customer would pay $54.03, which puts you a little bit below Bargersville, below Greenwood and Greenfield, a little bit above Martinsville, Columbus, and Mooresville. So it kind of gives you an idea of where you fall in that. Again, you're not bound by any comparisons. There are always going to be a little bit of differences between utilities of an apple, an orange, and a tangerine, but
Mr.
just
Peters,
useful information.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all.
I'm looking at your new rates. What we're seeing is $51.41, and I think you had mentioned 54
Yeah,
something.
and the number was
I
9.
think that's a 25-year that we're looking at.
Yeah,
Okay,
different
the date
averages.
on that in the upper left-hand corner, this is the one we talked about last time. The one I'm looking at, reading from, is the one I sent over on July the 15th or
Okay.
July the 16th.
The one that was downloaded was the June 28th. So when you referenced the 9.7 earlier,
Yeah.
as opposed to the total revenue projection of 9.1 was the original one. I think that's I saw some looks on the council's face.
Okay,
The one on the iPad.
sorry, I can't see that up there.
Yeah.
No, no, it's no problem. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I think the one that was downloaded to the iPad was the 20-year, or I'm sorry, 25-year versus the 20.
Correct.
To save the 8 million.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, sorry about that.
No,
Oh, no, it's not your fault.
But yeah, the rates that were sent over in the updated study after our last meeting would take this from the 51.41 up to 54.03. But again, that would cut your amortization from 25 years down to 20 years. Overall savings would be about $8 million. I think either one of those models are acceptable for you as a fiscal body. But again, that's your decision to make as the fiscal body. Is the small increase in rate worth the $8 million in savings? I think from our last discussion, that was kind of the way you were leaning, or at least wanted to see that and have that option today. Legal counsel has preserved that option for you tonight so that you can look at that both ways. And he will come up here shortly to walk you through the legal and procedural parts. If we could go to the next slide. The 2023, as I talked about before, actual expenditures were about 3.39 million. We have adjusted those to the 4.5, and again, that shows you the adjustments were made to salaries and wages. Per the 25 budget estimates, looking at 2024 actual expenditures through the first half of the year in order to derive the 25 budgets, made us want to adjust salaries and wages, pension and benefits, materials and supplies, contractual services, in order to get you to a position where you're not going to be immediately eating cash. Your operations people can talk about the price of chemicals, things like that have gone up that are part of this adjustment to that.
That's true.
The next page in is the amortization for that East Side Interceptor. Following page would be amortization, and that one I believe is at 25 years. The updated study has the 20-year amortization for the $46 million in projects. Again, we put in $47 million of bond because we will have other expenditures that go along into the issuance of the bond. We may have to put some other monies aside for debt service reserve. We might have to purchase a bond insurance policy or a surety policy to serve in capacity of a debt service reserve, again, for bondholders. These are typical things that go into a bond issue that help get you a better interest rate because it better secures the debt and the repayment of what it is that you're borrowing so that you'll have lots of bidders and therefore the lowest interest rates when we go to market. Following page in is, again, mathematical proof. That one, I think, says 127% debt service coverage. The revised plan is 125.43%. So again, we have adjusted the rates enough to get your 125% coverage, no more. So we're not harvesting any more out of the rate than is necessary. And then on the last page is the schedule of rates for each 1,000 gallons. Treated is 10.75, unmetered users is 78.76. Again, that's proportionate increase based on all the other rates below, and then you have the rates for the different meter sizes, their new base rates, and the equivalency factor between each meter size. If you want to talk about equivalency factor, we'll have to get the engineers up. It's way over my head.
But can you just explain the difference between the unmetered and the metered and why there's a flat rate for unmetered and a per gallon rate for the metered?
You have the flat rate for the unmetered because you have no way to measure the amount of flow that's coming off.
And unmetered are people who are not water users but sewer users.
Correct. So when you have the water meter, the assumption always is whatever you send into the house as water in came out to sewage, and that's what it is that you're paying in order for treatment. When you have a water source that you don't know how much water goes in, you have to estimate. Again, we use the same proportion that was there before as to how much water would be estimated to come out and be treated. One of the other things in that scenario is you have no incentive if you don't pay based on the amount of water that you use. You have no incentive to restrict the amount of water that you send to the sewer. So potentially, it could be considerably more than what a metered user would be. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Could you go over that again?
Sure.
So I just now got my iPad back up and going. So the model that you're presenting, and maybe I just want to make sure I'm clear, is just based on 2023 numbers?
We use the 2023 base data because that's the last set of actual data that we have. And then we inflated the operational costs to recognize what we have or what you as a utility have experienced in the first half of '24 to make sure that you have.
That's the 125% debt service that you're talking about?
That was for the operational side. For the debt service, it is all anticipated. The 2020 bonds have a set amount of a repayment schedule that you've already agreed to, and those bonds have been sold. For these bonds that will likely be issued in 2025, you need to generate enough additional money to make each principal and interest payment plus 25% as it comes due.
So if there's a deficit can we dip into that $1 million that's set aside for the debt service?
Absolutely, and that's what it's there for,
Okay.
is to make sure that you pay that first. So there may be a point in time, really with your utility, you've continued to see growth. So you're probably going to continue to see growth and you won't have that. But if we did have some sort of drawback and you had to use $250,000 of that in order to make your debt service payment, then you would only have $750,000 that year for relining type projects, repair and maintenance. And again, if you get into a situation where you are systematically and perpetually not collecting enough money, then it's time to come back and do this exercise again and reset rates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Essentially, that's like having a reserve, just like our health insurance, we did that, and the banks put money in reserve, put it on the sideline in case of rainy day type of fund.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And also, so we're talking about $2.62 a month on the difference between a 20 and a 25 year, which is $31.44 a year to save $8 million.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that we have those numbers on the record. The only question I have further would be, Sherry, can you tell me what percent of the users will not be affected by this, or will they all be affected by this? Okay. And what percentage of the users are at the 4,000 gallons? Was it 60%?
Yeah, I've got that here.
Yeah, it's in the breakdown.
It was, I believe, 63.3% of the users are at or below the 4,000 gallon example. So all will be impacted, all will pay more based on the example provided for metered residential users. 63.3% of those would be at or below that amount.
Okay, Todd said he doesn't have any further questions. Anybody else?
Then we need Steve, yeah.
Anybody else for Jeff? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mr. Stephen Watson?
And I'm here to make sure we go through the proper process and that everyone's aware what the legal responsibilities are. And ultimately, the Common Council is responsible for setting appropriate rates, and you are required to and have the authority to set just and equitable rates. That's the key term that you have to follow. Just and equitable rates are rates that are required to maintain the sewage works in a sound physical and financial condition necessary to render adequate and efficient service. And those rates must be sufficient to do the following. First, pay all expenses of operating the sewage works. Second, pay the utility's debt service obligations. Third, provide funds for working capital. And then fourth, provide funds for improving and replacing the sewage works. The Common Council may use a variety of methods for establishing what are just and equitable rates, including a flat charge, which we have already discussed, for each sewer connection. Also, the amount of water used on the property and the size of the connection. All three of these types of rate setting we are doing in this proposed ordinance. Generally, a new sewer rate should be supported by a rate study, and in this case, you've just heard the results of that rate study that's been done. And now that you have received those rate study results, you are now in a position to take action to finally adopt the new rates that you want to impose. The summary of the process that you must follow is to start with the introduction of a rate ordinance, which took place last month on July 15. Second, you have to issue notice of a public hearing, and that was done both in the Daily Journal and also separately mailed to those customers that are outside the city limits. And then third, you need to have a public hearing, which is going to occur tonight, immediately following any questions you may have for me. And then finally, you need to adopt the rate ordinance, and you are able to do that tonight. And then the last step in the process is kind of administratively getting those new rates into your billing system and having those reflected in the new bills. The ordinance that's been provided to you anticipates that they will be imposed starting with the bills that are sent out in October and due in October. Now, we do understand that there may be some administrative issues that may cause that process to be a little bit slower than that October timeline. October would be the earliest, but the rate ordinance does provide a little bit of flexibility such that in the event that there is problems converting the billing system to the new rates, you would have that flexibility to impose those as soon as that process is completed for converting. And then with that summary of the process and legal responsibilities, I'm prepared to walk through somewhat briefly the proposed ordinance that you have been provided. This is the essentially the same ordinance that we walked through at the July meeting, with the exception that the new rates, or I should say the rates have been adjusted to reflect the 20-year amortization that we've discussed, rather than the earlier provided 25-year. The second section is where you will see those rates reflected, and that section 2 also includes the additional flexibility that I just mentioned in terms of when the new rates would take effect. Section 3 similarly does the same thing in terms of providing flexibility on the timing. Section 3 is the new rates that are going to be imposed for surcharges and additional impacts that some customers could present to the treatment of the sewage. That's a rare situation, but it was thought best to include those in our rates in the event that a customer does provide those. If there's any specific questions related to the proposed ordinance, I'm happy to answer those. And if you have any other more general questions, I'm happy to answer those. And then once we're done, again, as I said, it would be time to open up the floor to a public hearing.
Any questions for Stephen?
Steve, you guys have answered all the questions I had specifically. It's already been asked, so I do appreciate you and Jeff's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll open up for public hearing. We usually allow 20 minutes for public hearing. Sometimes we have to shut off at 20, and sometimes we don't have public hearing. Doesn't happen. So we're open. The floor is open. Anybody got any questions? Yes, Mr. Schweinhammer.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bob Schweinhammer. I reside at 752 Paris Drive. The thing I wanted to address, or maybe just to clarify, and Mr. Peters, I'll put you a little bit on the spot here, is in regards to the unmetered water users. And just to be upfront, I'm a metered water, so this really would not affect me one way or another. But in talking to some of my very close neighbors who are unmetered, we started comparing. To just give you an example, currently I'm paying $34 a month. Now that includes the trash pickup and the fire hydrants and that's everything. My neighbors just up the street are paying almost double that, and in some cases more than double that, because they're on unmetered. So just to clarify, on the proposed rate, unmetered residents said will pay $78.76. And then when you throw in the trash pickup and the stormwater, those people are going to be paying right at $100, where I'm probably only going to be paying $50. Are you using the 4,000 gallon number as to determine that? Because that didn't add up. What are you using? Sure.
Again, when we structured these rates, we took the existing structure and just applied the same increase for everybody. The assumption is we had fair and equitable rates. If we raise them all to the same proportion, everybody pays the same proportionate share, we still have fair and equitable rates. So if the unmetered rate was unfair last time, it's been unfair for the last 20 years. The amount that's based on this is 6,300 gallons. That predates me. I don't know when it was set at that. However, I believe engineering department has looked at just a few pickouts to see. There are those that are above that, and there are those that are below that. And again, you have a group of people, and this may be, not representative of them, but there are people that, again, you cannot measure the amount that goes in there, and they have no incentive to prevent or restrict the amount that goes in there. So you really don't know how much is going into the model that you have to provide service for, and I'll let kind of Mark speak to some of that.
Yes, thank you. Mark Richards, city engineer. I did ask Sherry Phillips late this afternoon to pull up some usage information on homes that are metered in this general vicinity near Paris Estates, but not in Paris Estates. There were a couple of homes on Augusta that the usage was 5,600 gallons a month. One was 6,400 gallons a month. Couple of homes, and these were randomly selected by Sherry. On St. Andrews, one was 3,700 gallons a month. One was 5,400 gallons a month. So we're in the general ballpark with that 6,300 gallon figure.
I would maybe beg to differ. I mean, you've taken 4 houses out of 9,000 houses. And I think you look at the people that live on the unmetered. You also made the statement that you assume or you say they might not be as conscientious. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think just because somebody's on a well that they're going to waste water. Now, they might waste water in their gardens, but that doesn't go down into the sewer. And also, Mr. Peters referenced, and I think he's right, that when this thing first started, it was really back in the 70s when Paris Estates was put in, because almost everybody was already on water. We can go into a whole long story why they don't have water, but when that was set up, similar people as you were sitting around saying, well, how do we build these people? And so they just kind of grabbed a number out of the air. And then over the years, every time there's a rate increase, they literally end up paying more money percentage-wise. And the 63, I mean, he just said a few minutes ago, 64% of the people are at 4,000. I'm sure there's probably some people out there that do use 6,300 or maybe even 8,000. But there's a lot of people out there that are, it's just man and wife. And I would just say that they're being treated a little unfairly. And I would even recommend that you change this proposal, because keep in mind, we're only talking about probably 200 houses. So it's not like we're affecting a large amount of money. But I would recommend they use the 4,000 rate rather than the 6,300. And I think it'd be more equitable. So that's, beyond that, I don't like to see mine going up either, but I was part of the Board of Works when this was all started about 5 years ago, realizing what we were going to have to do. So I knew it was coming. I don't like it, but I understand it. And I'm surprised there aren't more people here. They'll be calling your office next week.
I'm used to that.
But I'd like for you to at least consider that.
Bob, I just want to clarify one thing. I think that you said something that was a little bit misleading. We're talking sewer rates. We're not talking trash. And
I understand.
But you said the total bill's going to be.
Well, that's what people understand is the total bill.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking sewer rates. So enough said. I just wanted to clarify that for the people
Yes,
that's
and
watching.
if I misled in my statement, I apologize, but, when people get their sewer bill, all they look is that bottom number. So that's where I came up with that number, is added everything together. So
So, thank you, Bob. Okay, anybody else?
So what is the unmetered rate right now? What are people paying as the unmetered? I don't know what that number is. What's the increase look
We're in
like?
Paris Estates.
Yeah.
We pay $63, and that includes trash.
So,
The difference between 60, well, you have to back out the trash.
yeah, so you're going to go up to, did you figure out what yours is going to look like?
63 less, was it 11? So,
Yeah.
So-
the percentage goes up the same.
Yeah.
11% for metered, 11% for
Okay,
unmetered, but it's a different number because,
yeah,
and so it's basically averaged on about 6,300. Whether they use 8, they get the same, whether they use 4, they pay the same. And the only way, because I asked this question, the only way we could actually find out what is accurate, I shouldn't say accurate because this is a appropriate way to meter it, but would have to physically install meters on every, which is cost prohibitive to be able to do that.
It's still public hearing. Anybody else? Okay, at this time,
Sean,
we'll
go
close
right
the
ahead.
public hearing. Okay, council, you got other questions? and
John,
comments?
did you get your answer? I mean,
yeah, yeah, it kind of gives me the roundabout number. I was just wondering what that increase looks like. I know it's going up a certain percentage from different levels, but I didn't know what they were actually, because no one here tells me where it looks like what they're paying right now.
well, it's in there.
Is it?
Yeah,
I missed
it
what
is.
they're, I've seen the new, but I didn't see the old,
Hold on.
unmetered.
I don't think the word's.
I didn't know which category the unmetered fell
We
into.
knew.
I don't
There's,
think,
there's about 9 different categories, but I didn't know which category
The old unmetered was $39.78.
okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Marnie Moore, you got a
about
question?
$35.
No, I think we've covered all my questions, so.
Well, at this time, if there's no other questions, it's time to decide what you want to do.
All right.
We'll close the public hearing.
We close the public hearing.
Well, I will say, I've been on the board a long time and the council for a while. And, Bob's been a mentor of mine for a long time and for decades, worked with Bob. Bottom line is that, we've been talking about this for longer than 6 years, Bob. It's been further than that. Possibly, we probably could have done something prior to that, but we haven't. So this can's been kicked and kicked and kicked. So it's time for us to move forward with the proposal. Anyone else? I do also think the 20-year is also fiscally responsible. I truly do. I think saving $8 million over 5 years is the right thing to do for all the users in the city.
So is that a motion?
I just wanted to see if anybody else got anything to say.
I'll make a motion. I move that we accept the proposal for the wastewater rate increase, subject to the 20-year payment schedule and implemented as soon as possible.
I believe the ordinance indicates October unless not possible. There's specific language in there as soon as the billing department can do it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I would like to have a roll call vote, please. Have a roll call vote, call each member's name.
Mr. Austin,
Aye.
Mr. Shuck,
Aye.
Ms. McGinnis,
Aye.
Ms. Nally,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Mr. Prine,
Aye.
and Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ordinance carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to other business. Update regarding Franklin Education Connection Program and upcoming student trip to Europe. Dustin Huddleston.
I know I'm last on the agenda, so I'll be brief to get you guys out of here, but as routinely, Mr. Shuck's leaving when I get ready to talk, so. For the record, my name is Dustin Huddleston. I live in the city of Franklin. I'm also an attorney during the day, but my passion is education. So what I also do is I'm the president of Franklin Education Connection, been president for about 5 years. We're a nonprofit entity, members of 25 people in our membership, including Councilwoman Jennifer Price, and thank you for your service, consisting of citizens like me that donate our time and are concerned with the future of education. Our main benefactor and our sole benefactor is Franklin Community Schools. We have grown over the years to force a need to have a full-time employee, and that's Melissa Paramore. She does all the hard work in between and makes me look good. But we have a variety of events that are sprinkled throughout the year, but I wanted to give a chance and always update you guys on what we're doing since you supported us through the years. So what do? We have 4 main programs that we implement. First one is very simple and easy. We raise funds to give grants to teachers directly. Our grant cycle starts in September and ends just after fall break, and it gives teachers the opportunity to pitch to us any ideas they want for funds, physical devices, books, or programs that just need any type of funding. And we usually have about a 90% approval rate of those grants because the teachers write such good grants, and we always are encouraging to give out those funds. For the last 3 years, we had a pause on COVID where our numbers were flat, like everybody's numbers, but we have increased those grants every year, and we anticipate to do that again this year. Second is our mentorship program called Study Buddies. That was our longest and most original program. Ann McGinnis was on that Study Connection program for a number of years. And what that does is for kindergarten through 8th grade, we pair a student who's in somewhat need with a mentor who meets with them 1 hour a week. And it can help with homework, just life in general, but we've had a lot of great success stories with students that are paired with mentors and shepherd them throughout their life up to 8th grade. We're in need of mentors. Our numbers went down because of COVID, but we've come back up a little bit where we're trying to get over 100 mentors. We have more kids than mentors, so we need some mentors out there. So if you know of anybody in your circles, please get a hold of me, and happy to get those onto the Study Buddy program. Our other program is another mentorship program, and that's the high school students. That's called our First Scholars program. Really exciting program where we take incoming students that are 8th grade and say, I think I want to do something after high school, whether it be college or some kind of training, but no one in my family's ever done that, so I really don't know how to do that. So we pair them with a mentor that meets with them once a month and get our First Scholars program. And we make sure that for their 4 years, they take the right classes, they do all the testing that they need to done. So our first goal is to get them to graduate. And then the second goal is to give them all the opportunities they can to go on to whatever those need be. We take them to colleges and campuses and meet with financial aid people to eliminate that concern of I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I can't do this or that. Yes, you can. We get those applications to them. We've had many success stories. It's in our 7th year where we have some people right now who graduate our program that are at universities that they profess they never would have been there without our program. So it's a really exciting program. And then lastly is our newest program, which is the Study Abroad program. So every other year, Marnie Moore's mom does a terrific job of formulating and issuing a trip to our sister city in Kuji, Japan. And that's fostered through Marnie's parents that really do a good job doing it. We do that every other year. We had that trip last year. And then our newest program is supported by Indris Hauser, who's always supported our entity, and it's our European trip. We do that every year. Last year was our first trip, and we have 3 students here today that went on that trip. They went to Paris, Switzerland, and Germany, and it was a really big success for the first trip. And then next Tuesday, we have 10 of our high school students that are heading off to Italy, Switzerland, and Germany. And 2 of those students have never even flown on a plane before. So you talk about a big transformative experience that they're going to have. And a number of things that we'll do is we'll visit businesses over there that are Andrus Hauser facilities, so we'll get the business aspect, but we're also going to see the original Last Supper painting. We're going to go to a concentration camp, see castles, lifetime changing experiences. So we're really excited about that. We couldn't do these things without your support. Every year you guys have given us dollars and also supported us through our events, so I appreciate that very much. We're just trying to enhance the education of students there. It's the old adage of we can feed someone fish and that feeds them for a day, but if we teach them how to fish, they're going to be fed for the lifetime, and we're in the teaching business to try to do that. So just wanted to update you. Happy to answer any questions you have, but again, thank you for your support throughout the years. So, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dustin. Any questions for Dustin? How about we start with Marnie Moore, introduce the students that are here. And she is our new president of the Mayor's Youth Council, so glad you're here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Hi again, my name's Marnie Moore. I'm the elected president of FMYLC this year. I'm a junior, and I'm accompanied by Willa Thomas. She's also a junior, and she's our communications chair. And then Noah Woods, he's a senior, and he's our treasurer.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just,
Go ahead. You got any
could I
more?
give a brief update on FM? Okay, so we had our first meeting last Thursday on the 15th, and we started the year off coming up with the project, our main project that we want to pursue this year, and that is the hope of installing lights on the pickleball courts at the amphitheater. This was something a lot of people in our club wanted to pursue, and even Mr. Todd talked to me about it and said this could be a good project. So that's something we're hoping to do, and we want to already start fundraising. So our idea obviously is a pickleball tournament that we'd like to host on September 15th. So everyone please put it in their calendars. And next city council meeting, we'll come back with flyers and more information. But
Well, tell Todd he skipped out on you whenever you brought that up.
yeah, I'm going to talk to him about that.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you.
I'll just write on Dustin's coattails just because I'm the PR fundraising committee chair for FEC. And we have a barn event that, again, the funds go to the students and the teachers at Franklin Community School Corporation. And that is November 8th. And so if you want tickets, please see me.
Thank you.
Or Dustin, sorry.
So with that barn event, we have applied for a grant through the Johnson County Community Foundation that is through Eli Lilly. Find out this week if we get it. We've made it through the first cut. That grant matches what we raise at the barn event. So it could be up to $60,000, which would be our largest grant. So if you buy a ticket, it's going to be whatever your contribution is, could double. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Yep, thank you. That's all I have. Yep.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Sean?
Nothing tonight, sir?
Ken?
I don't have anything, Mayor, thank you.
Ann?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Josh?
Nothing tonight.
Jan?
Public service announcement, Marty. While you're thinking about the pickleball things, I happen, just as a practical matter involved in something else, there are scholarships where they will give youth groups money
Right.
to put in the AEDs. Remember Damar Hamlin, the football player that had the on-field cardiac arrest?
Yeah.
There are scholarships out there that youth groups like you can apply for to use those to install them. So you might put lights and AEDs down there.
I think, yeah, Mrs. Payne was telling us that I think we have an AED in the area, but I'll look into it.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
we don't have any at the pickleball courts.
Not
And that,
directly,
and
okay.
and they would pay.
That would be
They
great.
would give you the money to be able to do it. And I
Oh,
think that would
okay.
be given the demographics of people in the pickleball courts. Might
too.
be.
I get really out of
maybe a
breath
good-
over there.
Yeah, maybe a good asset to have, but there is money out there for groups like yourself, so.
Okay, thank
That's my
you.
public service
Thank
announcement.
you.
Okay, and I don't have anything to add, so ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.